Howard, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well. Thanks for coming on this later afternoonish on a Monday.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. My
So,
honor.
man, I know we are both in the same field, and man, I just have to ask you. I see that sign back to your left, to my right, and it just says "I am." God, man, this is such a big thing that I love. Like this whole idea of "I am." I have no clue what it means for you. Tell me about that poster to your right there.
Yeah, well, other than my two actual children, who are older now, 25 and 22, that is
Okay.
my one of my babies. That is my first book. It's called
Okay.
I Am: The Power of Discovering Who You Really Are. And powerful book about where identity comes from and how that's connected to the creative process of life.
We're diving all in, man. We're diving all in because I mean, we're gonna do no intro. We're just gonna get hot and heavy right off the bat because I think that's the first step, And I love my Peloton, and I love Jess King. Have you ever rode the Peloton?
Have I ever ridden one?
Yeah.
No, I've not ridden one, but I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and look, I'll be superficially very honest.
Mhm.
She has the biggest boobs, so that's why I chose her for my very first ride. But she connected with me on a much different level than like I'm not going to stay there, right? I'm not
Right.
that low class where I'll stay just for that. Like I need a much greater connection. And she gave me that much greater connection on the first ride. And she often does
Mhm.
as we come back to it. And what she was saying today, I just got off the bike. I just took a shower and got off the bike. And she was like, you don't need to be saved. You just need to know who you are. And I was like, God damn. Because I loved it. So tell me about your I am.
So I went through a natural, amazing, organic, unbelievable, almost speechless moment of humility through an expansion of mind. And what came out of it was an understanding that the way that we define who we are, not who we think we are, not who we want to be, not who we desire to be, not what we tell people we are, but what we truly believe on the deepest part of our subconscious or our soul, our truth, those are our I am statements. And that is the only thing life is working to help us validate. So that disconnect between what's subconscious about that and what's conscious and what you're trying to create is the space that I try and fill for people to help them understand where those truths might not have been serving them their entire life and how to change them. So that's where I am comes from.
Do you have your own personal I am statements?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm getting ready to dust the ones off from, beginning of last year. I do it every year annually, just kind of renew who I want to be as it relates to what I'm trying to create though. Right. Because that is the connect. It's helpful that they're connected to what your intention is and what you're trying to create.
Can I have an example of yours?
Sure. I am a spiritual teacher.
Okay.
So my intention is to share this awareness and share this work. So that I am statement, okay, how am I demonstrating and validating that throughout the year? What am I doing to make sure that I'm walking my talk and not bullshitting myself? And so that's just one of many.
I have six, personally, that I say to myself every day. When I wake up, I meditate, I pray, whatever that looks like for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not a religious person, right? But I pray every day because I think it's very important. And then I go through my I ams, and I go through my I ams, and I make the 4 agreements.
Wow.
And I get up and I go through my day, and that's how my day starts.
That is powerful.
325 days of the year, let's say.
It's really powerful, and it's ironic because it's one of the big things that I give people to do. Start your day, set it on the right path, grease the wheel for yourself right off the bat, so you don't have to forget and come back and remember what it is you're trying to accomplish. One of the other things I've learned, which just blew me away, was just that connection between us and life, us and the universe, us and divinity, however your spirituality, the way you look at life wants to connect to it, but how connected it is in trying to serve us and help us create what we're looking to create. and it will find any crack in the cement to get us the awareness we're looking for, and usually in ways we didn't expect.
Right.
It
Right.
comes in. So
Where did this, so that's your first book. Where did the idea of this stem from you? How did you start thinking about the importance of this? How did you come to this realization? Because that process I always find so amazing, and also so can be so difficult sometimes for people, and also so fucking beautiful.
yeah, that is a great question. I'll give you the short to medium story, and if you want me to
Yeah.
expand on any part of it, I will.
Mhm.
The short story is, it all got sparked when I was 14. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. My aunt and uncle took me on a fishing trip to northern Minnesota near the Canadian border. Never been far from home. We're out in the wilderness. We drive up to this cabin, this rustic cabin on a lake that was like out of a movie, with its own boat dock in the middle of nowhere on this giant lake. It was dusk. Everybody went to sleep. Of course, I'm 14. I unpacked my stuff. I'm like, I want to check things out. Went outside. It was pitch black out by that time. Walked down to the end of the dock, stared into this huge lake. First thing that hit me, never experienced this in my life before, the oxymoron of the sound of silence. Amazing. Like, I'll never forget that moment. Sound was always a part of my life. Anyway, as I was looking out into this lake and this surreal experience, the lake was just like a sheet of glass. I started to see what looked like light shining up from one part of the lake. And my brain was like, what in the world is that? And I had noticed they were in another part of the lake. And then as I looked, these lights were all across the entire lake. And I had no idea what was going on for a split second. And then I looked up. That moment shook me to my core. I could not believe the amount of stars I was seeing in the sky, that's what was reflecting off the lake.
Okay.
And it blew me away. I was like, holy, this is above our head every single night. This unbelievable piece of art, this majesty, this depth, this infinity. How have we not explored more about the nature of who we are and why we're here? And so all these questions were sparked at 14 that sent me on a journey, a very inquisitive journey. I was also the kid that always challenged the teacher in class, questions, incessant questions. And I thought, I had normal upbringing. My parents got divorced when I was in my teens. I left home at 18 to go put myself through school out west. And I had this checklist of like, okay, I want to be happy in life. Like, my parents loved each other, but weren't happy and had to get divorced. And, I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to figure this big picture out. So went out west, got my degree, put myself through school, check, fell in love and got married, check, got a job in the business I wanted to, financial business, because we grew up in an unstable household, figured I'd get my arms around that one, right? Check. And Elliot, as I was checking all these things off the list, my anxiety wasn't going down any. My need to know and understand and be at peace wasn't getting any better. And my two beautiful children, bought our first home, started to do well in business. Now I'm really getting worried because it's still not working. One day I realized, okay, I've checked everything off the list. What's left? Well, the American dream says you got to have millions of dollars. That makes you happy. So I'm walking through my house one day. All of a sudden, it just hits me like a right cross. It's like, man, I'm working with wealthy people every single day who are miserable. It's not money. I couldn't believe it. That answer left me, or that idea of what the answer was left me, and I was left with nothing. And that emptiness, that not knowing, created a sense of fear in me that took me to my knees. So this is at 35. I went to my knees and I just said, okay, I'm not going to be able to go on another single day. Like, literally, I don't have meaning anymore. I don't have understanding. I want to reconcile so many things with the world, and I don't have answers.
Can I ask you a question? How old are you right now?
Right now I'm 54.
Okay. So 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was 20 years ago. Okay. Right. Yeah. This the anniversary of it will be, it's actually, it's coming up. So, and I asked it with such an intensity and a yearning that I never knew existed in me before. Like, I needed to know. Let it go. Went back into my life. Kind of in a little bit of a zombie state, but went back into my life. 2 weeks later, I'm at a seminar. I was in the finance business. I read 2 books by this guy who wrote a book on the psychology of trading markets. Thought it was fascinating, interesting take on how your mind, creates the experience. And we're in this little seminar with 20 people at one of the local resorts here. And he says something like, you're creating the whole experience. You're putting together the amount, the size, the investment, how long you're in, how long you're out. You're making the whole thing happen. You're creating it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's interesting. I never looked at it that way. And then I thought, holy shit, I'm not just doing this for finance. I'm doing this for life. And I realized in one instant that it was up to me and my choices and my perception and my reaction, how my experience went. And just knowing that that power was in me was enough to like give me a breath and be like, okay, I'm onto it. The second thing that blew me away, that really tripped the switch and got me going on this path, was I connected the dots to my questioning. I went, holy shit, this is how life works. You ask questions, you go into life, and it shows up if you're mindful enough. Not that you're forcing like adding up numbers on a life plate or getting a little bit crazy like that, but it comes, and it started to pour in, and it came from bumper stickers and subtext in movies that I never saw before, even though I'd seen the film, and lines in a song that I'd listened to 100 times as a kid. And all of a sudden I heard the spiritual meaning, the depth of it, like it was speaking to me. And all of a sudden life started like talking to me. And so the conclusion is, after 6 months of this, I started to shorten the window between question and answer. So I was so mindful that I'd ask a question, be ready for it, and boom, I'd get it in a day, and then like 6 hours, and then like an hour. And then I hit a time in
I don't know how to explain that to people, right?
how to explain
How to
information.
explain that experience.
Well,
Like,
well, for some people, it might be right now.
right.
It's listening
incredible
to these words.
It's incredible, because like what you're explaining here, like that's my Jess King moment on the Pelotons, right? She's just fucking talking. And to me, I'm like, yep, there's the answer. There's an answer. Boom. Like wow, something I was asking for.
Very cool. Yeah.
It like I like when you're talking about like the bumper stickers and the, like,
and it was
I had
so
a very
connected to where I was.
Yeah. And I had a very similar experience right at the same age. Mine was a little more suffering. I was in great suffering when my experience came. And I had this, I was laying down literally right over here to my right on the floor, like not able to go on, brought like down. And I was closing my eyes and I just felt something, and I have no clue what that was. And it just told me that I was okay.
Wow.
Right.
Cool.
And it told me that there was more.
Wow. I love it. Yeah.
It told me.
I can resonate with that.
It was almost like a God experience or a divine experience. It didn't
Depending
care.
On your definition.
Yeah. It wasn't like it cared about me though. It was almost like, how, have you ever listened to people talk about a DMT trip when they go and talk to the aliens, or ayahuasca?
I've heard. Yeah.
It was almost like that, because like we naturally produce DMT in our bodies. We just block it. It was almost like it stopped being blocked. Like I was so gone that it stopped being blocked. And I went something like, and I sound crazy, I know, but I feel it as clear as day. You're okay. There's more,
Wow.
And literally I was freed from my anxiety. I was crippled with anxiety, and I was freed for 24 hours. Like 24 hours, it just disappeared.
Wow.
And it was really so I resonate so greatly with what you're saying.
Yeah. And that process led to a moment where information started to come in before I'd even asked the question. And that's where it gets a little hard to put into words, because it was so, there go the words. Anyway, it was so humbling.
I get it.
Yeah. And I had all this insight from 1 minute to the next. And I knew my life was going to be dedicated to sharing it. And that's what the book is about, is just sharing what was received, downloaded, experienced, understood about how life comes together. But I do want to say one thing on that, and then you can ask anything about it. But this whole time in my life, I was searching, I had a lot of regret. I had a lot of comparison, a lot of not good enough. And in one moment, I realized that I already was the perfection that I was searching for in each moment. And it wasn't that it was optimal, or it was nothing could change tomorrow and I couldn't get better and do different things and learn more. But for that moment, at each moment of my life, I was doing the best that I could. And when I finally realized that, Elliot, I was able to take that collective breath and go, okay, I get it. And what was left in that space rushed in was love and understanding and self-respect and self-appreciation. And that was the transformational moment. That was a turning point.
Howard, I can't, uh, I want to jump through the microphone and the screen here and give you a hug because my experience is, it's just so similar, you know, like, because for me, when I do the I am statements at the end of it, I just say, I am enough, you know,
Wow,
and
it's a powerful one.
because I know that all of my I ams make me enough just in each moment and not for tomorrow. Right. Like, and this is what you're saying too. Like, you'll be enough tomorrow when it gets here, but you've got to do all of this work
Yeah.
today. You have to
Yeah.
do all of this, what has to happen and go on today, so that you get to tomorrow, you know, because it's not guaranteed. So
exactly. But
yeah.
and the way that tomorrow unfolds is going to be very dependent on the energy that you hold about who you are today. That's the critical nature of it. That's the conscious control that we all can have when we're ready for it, when we're ready to receive that. But you know, a lot of people in doing this work for 20 years and working with so many people, a lot of people, they're defined by something else. So they don't know what it is to experience more joy, more peace. They only know the struggle. And that can sometimes be a little bit of just a little slower process for them to it, which is
road bumps,
fine.
road
Yeah.
bumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you work with people,
Mhm.
what is the first thing you start taking them down? How do you, like, what's your process a little bit?
So the first thing that I do, whether it's an athlete or whether it's an individual going through anything, is I lock in with what their intention is. I ask them, what are you trying to create? So that they know that I'm aligned with that. I don't want to teach them anything until I know what we're trying to create. Once I'm locked in with the intention, then we begin to talk about what it is they're looking to change or what they feel has been an impediment. And we start digging in, and then we find, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, we find the lies. We find which are the roadblocks.
The lies?
The thoughts that they have that indicate any sense of limitation, unworthiness, doubt. And what I believe is any of those thoughts are truly at the core lies. They've been believed as truths and lived out as truths subjectively by that individual. But when they're ready to change, they have to start by seeing them as lies, and whether or not they still serve them going forward based on what their intent is. If your intent is this, does this help in getting there? And these are sometimes can seem like easy questions, but they're not, because it's a big moment of realization. No, they're not. Okay, how can we shift that? How can we change that? And instead of fighting the old belief, because, you know, force equals counterforce, as you know very well in what you did for so many years, is that instead of using force, we simply just don't pay attention to it anymore and create a new counter belief that helps neutralize the old belief. And as soon as one belief has 51% more energy than the other one, done. The transformation takes place. So I walk them into that. And there's a big part of this is non-judgment. You know, I think one of the things the way I look at people is with a sense of perfection. I know everybody's doing the best they can, and that helps the process, helps with the trust. And then we begin to rebuild with some new beliefs. And then I prepare them to get ready for what, you know, the old dark voice can come back and pull. And so I help prepare them for that as well, because I don't want them walking out just with the new rose-colored glasses, not being ready for when that happens. I want them ready for when that counterattack happens, you know, and they're like, okay, I know what this is, ain't happening, you know, boom, let's keep going, you know? So a lot of that's the process and the work that I do.
How long does it take? How long, your process? What do you know?
It depends on the,
don't answer yet. Your process for you from that 35-year-old, right? And I understand it doesn't end, right? There's no ending to the process of self-improvement and development. But when did you really start to see, like, you know, quote unquote, the light?
So my process was like a dam burst, like a fire hose, like explosion. So it was an immediate transformation in that moment on the second experience that shook me to my core in the most unbelievable way. It took me a year to get my arms around it
Okay.
and to settle the energy down, because I was literally out of my mind. And my wife can tell you that, because she had to listen to me 24/7 as I process this all on her. You know, you're not going to believe this,
Right.
and this, and
Right.
the
Right.
cosmos, and this. I mean, all credit to
My
her
wife
for.
thinks I'm crazy too. I feel you.
It's okay, you get it. So, so once that was established, then the transformation had occurred. Now I still go, I still have things every now and then that come up that I'm ready, that
Right.
I have to be ready to deal with. But that was my process. I am ready to give a fire hose to somebody else, but I learned over time in doing this that not everybody's ready. I'm going at whatever their pace is. So I'm trying to tune myself to their pace. And if they just want a little sip from the water fountain, that's what I'll give them. If they want it all, I'll turn up the faucet, and the fire hose big time, and they can have it all and decide what they want to do. In my book, I put it all in there. I mean, I didn't, my editor said, you could put this in 3 books if you want. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to put it all out. Let people decide what they want to do with it.
Right.
But so that's the process. That was my process, was a sort of a rocket ship, but some people like to take an escalator, an elevator, and just
mine hit
tolerable.
Mine hit me hard, but it took years. It took years to fully grasp what had happened, I would say.
Yeah. You think you're crazy.
Yeah, for sure. What? Yeah, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
This simple?
Right.
Radically simple.
Yeah, and it's so, and like as you said, it's so hard to put into words. It's so hard to put into words. And I think for most people, like I found, like, anyway, with like an athlete, for example, like my fighters, to change them as a human, to change them as a fighter, it takes years. It takes years to be a different fighter. Like you can add tools to the back, you can add tools, and you can show up at a new fight with this new tool, but you're still pretty much the same. I feel like it takes a long time to really be like, oh shit, this is a different fighter. This is a different human.
Yeah. So. And you never know when that breakthrough is going to happen for that individual. But
right.
Yeah, but you're right. And especially with fighters where it's really truly a matter of physical survival. That's a big security blanket, how they've gotten there. And so, because I know this with my athletes that are not MMA fighters, and even for them, like just the fact of trusting a thought changer, a swing changer, or the way they play, it's their livelihood, it's their life, and takes a lot of faith.
Yeah, I used to hate that word, but now I don't.
Yeah, because it's such a esoteric word, right?
Right.
What does that mean, dude?
What does that mean?
What do you mean faith?
Yeah.
And yeah,
I get it. Yeah, and I don't know how I get it, but I get it. It's a very, I was the same as you as a child. Like, man, I'm questioning everything. Don't tell me that nonsense. That's nonsense. Okay, that's nonsense. And I was a good kid, but just in my mind, I was always questioning. I was always doubting. I couldn't, and that it is what held me back as a fighter. Right? Is I would always X and O it. And I can remember a time when Rashad Evans, we were at Jackson's and we were up in the living quarters, and I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to fight Chuck yet. I'll be there. I'll be ready to fight Chuck one day, but I wouldn't take a fight with Chuck right now, And he was like, Elliot, what the fuck is the matter with you? And I was telling him exactly, by the X's and the O's of why Chuck Liddell and Chuck was the champ at the time, right? Of why he would beat me. And Rashad was so mad at me. He was so mad at me. And I can remember the moment that I figured this out, and it was well past my fighting career. I remember calling him and being like, yo, homie, sorry for that, and it blew, like, it's why I couldn't fight well. Like, and I know I made it. Yes, I'm aware I made it to the UFC, but
yeah, exactly. I mean,
but I could have been better if this could have happened, but it wasn't my path.
No, you have the ability now to grace so many young men, and women with that same, with what, and that's the whole idea of teaching, right? Like, I didn't have this in my youth when I played sports, and, but now I get to share what my path has been and what I've experienced, and pass that torch on to other people. But yeah, faith is, we grow up wanting something tangible. And, I tell people, how do you not trust a universe that has birthed you into existence out of the cosmos and brought you to this moment. It's gotten you to this point. How are you not going to trust that going forward? You know, what, you know, what's happened by not even thinking about it and maybe mistrusting it at certain times. What happens if you trust it and just let go for the first time? What could happen?
It's those two words, let go. It's so hard to let go, right? Because we feel as though we have control.
It can be. Yeah. It can be.
For a lot of people, it is, right? Like, because you feel as though you have control over your life. And I think COVID here has really showed people how little control we have, right? Like,
great example.
This tiny little virus, and I don't want to argue where it came from or any of that, but it's in existence.
Yep.
That was that. By the way, I talked to you about disagreeing with somebody on my podcast. He told me it didn't exist, and I was like, "Huh?" So,
that's a tough one.
I was like,
that's
"What?"
A tough one.
You know. So anyway, it's in existence, and it has changed the world forever. It will never. The world will never be the same again. So, how much control do we have?
Right, and the reality is, in the big picture, you have control over nothing. In the little picture, you have control over your world and the choices you make, and the people that are in your life and how you can sometimes manipulate people and do things, whatever. But in the big picture, from today to tomorrow, no control whatsoever. But and the only reason this is coming up for discussion is in the essence of connecting it to this word faith, right? It's like when you get on an elevator, you have faith that it's going to work and the door's going to open. And that, sometimes those elevator doors, when they take a little while to open, for a split second, your mind goes, "This fucker gonna open." Where's the roof thing? Just in case I need to pull a,
Is this the movie Speed where that dude's gonna blow up the elevator and make it fall?
Or the one with Bruce Willis? Same thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but my point is, you have to have faith just to step on it. You get in a car, you have to have faith. You get on an airplane, you have to have faith. So you use faith every day of your life. It's just doing it on a bigger scale with the bigger picture. And here's what might help. This might help. What I've learned is you can have desire and want and goals and dreams and everything you want. When it shifts to need, you're working against yourself. Because that's the point you lose faith when you go to need in life. Because life has supported you your whole life up to this point, right? So when you go there, you're in ignorance because you don't need anything, really. Life will provide. Life will continue. Not saying you don't have to do things. You have to eat, shelter, all that stuff. Yes, I'm not trying to be so literal about it. But the point is, when you energetically go to a place of need, that's when you start working with time and pressure and force. And that's when it starts to work against you. So the best athletes, the best business people, the best in relationships are people that are in the situation with desire and want and heart, but they don't need it. And that's what gives them the balance for the clarity to operate at the highest level within it. Because it doesn't ultimately, they're not working out of pressure and force.
And they believe wholeheartedly that they're going to do it. They don't need evidence, right? They're
correct.
Yes.
In that moment or in the macro picture. So they might lose the battle, and they're not putting pressure on themselves to win the battle. But in the big picture of the war, they've got that one, I guess is the way I would say it, because that can get lost in translation too with the fight, right? Because they think they've won. No, it's not necessarily that they've won the fight. They know on a big picture, they're going to get to where they want to go. And that's what helps them win where they're at. There's not a need in the moment to do it in that. It's
100%.
Such a paradox, but
no, there's a need, but they let go of it.
Right.
They have this faith.
Yes, there it is.
They will make this happen. I was just explaining this to one of my athletes.
Yep.
I was like, girl, look, she's so smart, right? Like she's stupid smart. Like, and I guess that's an oxymoron too, right? Stupid smart.
That's a slang of really smart. But
she's 21 years old. She's about to have her third college degree. It's all paid for and all of this. So when she goes out there and competes, sometimes her own brain can get in her way because she, and I can relate. She just X's and O's it. And then that Xing and O, it can make her freeze. And in that freeze moment is when the other person can capitalize. And I'm like, girl, you just gotta we have to figure out how you just know you're going to get this done. You don't know, but you know, right? You will figure this out in each and every moment. And that's all you have to know. Exactly. You don't have to, I can't tell you that you know the move that's going to work.
Right. Let go of thinking and just be in the moment. And then your intuition kicks in and you start to see things before they happen, and
time slows down in those moments. It's really crazy how time slows down in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was just gonna say my all-time favorite athlete. Like if someone said, who are your top 3 favorite athletes? I would say 1 would be Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
2 would be Muhammad Ali. And 3 would be Muhammad Ali. So 4 is Walter Payton. But so anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is like, this guy, and we were talking about kind of being ahead of things. And in the moment you watch where his awareness was and how he'd be saying something, but he'd already thought 5 moves ahead. And that's what gave him speed, right? That's what gave him this elusiveness. And that's just one aspect of him that I really enjoyed. But anyways, the point, he's just a great example of knowing and being in the moment, and being able to see.
Have you watched The Last Dance with the Bulls?
Oh yeah. I lived it as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I love Michael Jordan. So mine's Michael Jordan, not Muhammad Ali. And I've probably watched episode 10, the last episode. I probably watched it 5 times, and I can watch it over and over and over again.
That's awesome.
And there's this, it's right in the beginning. There's this scene where, they're talking about Michael's greatest gift and how his greatest gift is just to be in the moment. It wasn't basketball, and his skill set was basketball. His gift is the moment. And they're all shooting a half court shot, and they have this bet, and they all miss. And then Michael makes it. And somebody looks at him and says something to him. He goes, yeah, why in the world would I ever think about missing a shot?
Oh, yeah, I remember that
I haven't taken yet.
Yeah.
And that's just who, and that's just what it is, right? Like, he doesn't even think about the loss. He doesn't even think about missing this one shot. When he goes to shoot the next one, he's like a fucking goldfish, right? Like, it's the first one I'm shooting, exactly. All these other ones don't matter.
Yeah. And when he was celebrating one episode, playing the piano, and the guy starts asking him about next season, and he looks at him and he goes, man, we right here, right now.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. Like, it's just, it's awesome.
But that's what the greatest do. Mm-hmm. That's all of them, the Alis, the Jordans, the Gretzkys, like the GOATs, the Bradys, right?
Have you seen that documentary yet?
No, I'm going to watch it.
It's really good.
I have a long plane ride on Wednesday. I'm going to watch it on Wednesday.
Yeah. There's 4 of 10 that are out so far, but
I hate him, but he's amazing.
Well,
I hate him as a player,
right? Okay. Yeah. So I had kind of that. He wouldn't let you in ever, and I don't like when someone's, I like to connect. I like to see more of him. And he, I think that's a lot of Belichick's coaching, just keeping him very monotone. When you watch this, though, you get to see it, and it changed my perspective on him completely.
You're never going to change. I hate him, but he's the best. So, I mean, look, I tell this story sometimes. I don't know. It was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. I was walking out of the T-Mobile Center after a fight, and, we walk out the back, and the celebrities all come in the back. And I'm walking down the ramp, and I see him walking up the ramp, and I'm like, God damn that motherfucker, in my head. But I have this rule that I only take pictures with GOATs. And then, like, as soon as I have it, I just start making this little right turn. I was like, yo, bro, can I get a pic? Because he's the GOAT. And it's just that simple. Like, the first thought was, I hate you. The second thought was, I need a picture.
Did he do it?
Yeah, it was great. He was the man. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course he did. So, but yeah, I'm excited to watch it because it's the same thing. How does a 41, or I don't even know, how was he, 41, 42 years old? How does a 42-year-old guy that can barely move go to a team that was 6-10 and then win the Super Bowl the next year?
Powerful,
and it's only him and Gronk. It's not like anything else changed.
You get a peek into how he does it.
All right, I'm excited.
None of it surprised me. I was like, wow. It did a little bit. I didn't give him enough credit.
He's a fucking man.
He knew how to manipulate a situation and create.
I actually did
what
a
he wanted.
podcast, I don't know, 2 months ago with Rob Gronkowski's brother, Chris Gronkowski. And that
Oh,
was
cool.
really interesting. That was, that was
Yeah.
interesting. Couple questions here as I like to close it up. I ask everyone these last two questions.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast, I don't know if you know, I mean, I hope you weren't expecting much from it, Howard, as far as like
No, this
money,
is great.
revenue, or publicity, or
No, no,
I
no.
am, I'm not
I'm honored to
this,
share.
yeah. So it's not going to blow you up, right? But it's 5 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, a couple weeks before Christmas. Why say yes, right? Because I'm sure a lot of opportunities come down your road. What makes you say yes to coming on some guy's show that you haven't met before? And I'm sure I'm not the only one, that to share the message.
So when this happened to me 20 years ago, I was so humbled, and my first question was, was why me? Like who the hell am I? Some dude in Scottsdale, Arizona. Like what? I don't get it. And then I realized that this insight, this information isn't for just me or anybody special. It's for everybody. And when I knew that, I'm like, okay, now I know what I want to do. Now I want to be able to go out and just let other people know and share it. And I wanted to be a good servant of the grace, so to speak. I wanted to be, like a good letter carrier for what I felt was an incredible, unbelievable letter that I opened that I'd like to just share for people who are interested in and want to know more about this empowerment, self-understanding. So it's my honor to do this. And whenever I get asked, I feel it's a great honor to go and to have an opportunity to share with anybody or anybody's audience.
That's why I call this podcast The Gospel of Fire. Because I believe everyone's story, each and individual, of how we've made it to our place in our step is the gospel. It's not mine. I don't like my gospel, something, but we all need to hear each other's story and come together a little more. And I like to, and everyone's answer is very similar. And I like for the audience to hear that, right? That's because so often we want an ROI, and in this world, how many likes, how many clicks, did my email catcher lead to them into my funnel, and in my funnel, right? Did they go through the steps and then purchase, and then I spent this much on Facebook ads, it cost this, and then boom, I made money, but what's the real ROI? Because I can't be your real fucking ROI, because like you said earlier, there's a lot of rich people that are brutally unhappy.
Yeah, it's not about that. I mean, you got to survive, and that's fine. I understand that it's an economic
balance
world,
that. Yeah,
exactly. But
you have to balance that.
Something way more powerful.
Last question, man, is I believe everyone has a unique thing about them. I call it their power. It's what they get to give to the world. It's what makes them amazing. It makes them who they are. What would you say your power is?
I'd say I would hope it's two things. One is I try and remain extremely humble about this and the work and sharing it. So I think that humility keeps the door of wisdom open, because I think when you lose your humility, you shut off yourself from wisdom and learning and growing. And then the other thing I would say, what I've been told, the feedback is the level of clarity of the work causing the impact. So I would say it's the ability to take what seems like massive concepts that create huge transformation and impact and put them into a very effective and clear way of hearing it and absorbing it.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
My honor. Thank you for having me.
If everybody wants to contact you, reach out to you, or find you, where's the best way to do that for them?
HowardFalco.com, FALCO, and Instagram, TikTok. I put this wisdom out anywhere there's a platform of people. Those are the main sources. Oh, and of course, the sports website is obviously pretty critical. It's totalmindsports.com.
All right. Howard, thanks for coming on. I greatly appreciate it, guys. As always, look, Howard has his unique power and the gift that he gets to give to the world. I have my unique power and my gift that I get to give to the world. Don't go out in the world and try to be Howard. Don't go out in the world and try to be Elliot. You go out there and you find your own power.
Oh, really good.